It's October 9th, 1492. For over 2 months, 90 men have been staring at nothing but the black expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Their ship's rations are nearly gone. The bread is harder than stone, and the remaining drinking water is choked with a foul, rotting slime. Driven to the absolute edge of starvation, the crew delivers a final, non-negotiable demand. Turn this ship around and head back to Spain within 3 days, or we will throw you into the sea. The target of this mutiny is Christopher Columbus. He is stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a crew that wants him dead, all because he refused to let go of a stubborn obsession. This terrifying standoff on the open ocean is the inevitable climax of a continent-spanning financial gamble. To understand how Columbus ended up staring down a mutiny, we have to look at the massive economic forces that put him on that deck. Years earlier, Columbus was just a young boy from a modest family in the Italian port city of Genoa. While other kids played in the streets, he spent his days watching trade ships arrive, absorbing tales of the unimaginable wealth sitting in the East. By the 15th century, Europe was desperate for India's spices, silks, and riches, but the physical trade routes were entirely monopolized by a long chain of expensive middlemen, draining profits before the goods ever reached European markets. Columbus formulated a radical pitch to bypass that bottleneck. Instead of fighting through the eastern land routes, he proposed sailing straight west, into the uncharted ocean, to hit the shores of Asia from the other side. Look at this globe. Educated people already knew the Earth was round. The issue was that Columbus incorrectly calculated the Earth's circumference to be drastically smaller than it actually is. Because of that specific mathematical error, the distance looked like a quick shortcut. Columbus unwittingly set a deadly trap for himself and anyone else who agreed to sail with him. Armed with his flawed math, Columbus took his maps to the Portuguese court, asking King John II for a fleet of ships to prove his theory. The Portuguese scholars reviewed his proposal and flatly rejected it. They didn't think the Earth was flat. They rejected him because their own math was accurate. They knew the Earth was massive, and any crew attempting that western voyage would starve to death long before reaching Asia. Refusing to accept defeat, Columbus took his pitch to Spain. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella had just finished a series of exhausting, costly wars. Desperate to rebuild their wealth and secure a trade monopoly, they finally agreed to finance the expedition. By funding him, the Spanish crown essentially weaponized a geographical lie. They signed off on an impossible calculation, effectively launching a small fleet of men directly into an oceanic void. On August 3rd, 1492, 3 small wooden ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Niña, sailed out of Spain with 90 men aboard. At first, the winds were in their favor, but as weeks turned into months with no land in sight, panic set in. They sailed into the Sargasso Sea, a massive expanse of thick, floating seaweed that terrified the crew, who feared the ships would be trapped forever. Then, the ultimate breaking point arrived. The ship's compass stopped pointing in its usual direction. For 15th century sailors, the compass was their last tether to reality. When it failed, muttering quickly turned to open hostility. Sensing a complete loss of control, Columbus resorted to a deceptive tactic. Every night in his dim cabin, he maintained a second, fake logbook. He accurately recorded their true distance in his private journal, but intentionally read much lower numbers aloud to the crew. He knew that if the men realized exactly how far they had drifted from Spain, they would violently rebel. His lies bought the expedition a few extra weeks of compliance, but the psychological pressure continued to build. By early October, the facade shattered entirely, bringing Columbus face to face with the furious men demanding his life. We arrive back at October 9th. Outnumbered and out of options, Columbus accepts the crew's terms. He asks for just 72 hours. If they don't find land in 3 days, he will turn the ships around. The first day passes in agonizing silence. But as the sun rises on the second day, a green twig with fresh leaves drifts past the hull. Soon after, coastal birds appear in the sky above the masts, species that experienced sailors know never stray far from a shoreline. The tension snaps at 2 a.m. on October 12th. A sailor standing watch on the Pinta spots a dark, solid shape interrupting the horizon. He screams out to the crew. The countdown is over. They have found land. At sunrise, Columbus steps ashore and claims the island for Spain. Standing right in front of him are the indigenous people who have inhabited this land for thousands of years. Driven by his unwavering belief in his own flawed calculations, Columbus immediately labels these locals Indians. He is absolutely certain he has reached the eastern islands of Asia. But Columbus had not found a shortcut to India. He was completely, hopelessly lost. As this map shows, he hadn't bypassed the ocean. His ships had accidentally collided with a massive landmass that was standing directly in his path. Columbus would make several more voyages before his death, taking the delusion that he had reached the East with him to the grave. He never realized the true scale of his error. That single mathematical miscalculation accidentally collided two halves of the globe that had been separated for millennia. By chasing a phantom route based on bad math, Columbus inadvertently forced the rest of the world to throw out its old maps and account for two continents no one in Europe knew existed.